My wife, who never touched alcohol, came home completely wasted on the day her childhood sweetheart flew back into the country. The only time I'd ever seen Claire drink was when we shared a champagne toast at our wedding. After that, nothing. She'd handle work events with sparkling water, claiming to hate the taste of alcohol. A few times, when I was in a great mood and wanted her to share a glass of wine with me, she'd politely refuse. I eventually stopped asking. "What happened to you?" I asked, my voice tight. "I thought you didn't drink." Sensing my disapproval, she slurred. "My friend was having a really bad day. I just had a few with her to keep her company." A few minutes later, while scrolling through my phone, I opened Instagram. The first story at the top of my feed was from Leo Vance. It was a video of him and Claire at some loud, dim-lit bar doing shots. They were leaning into each other, so close their shoulders were touching, giving each other smoldering looks that screamed history. He'd captioned it, "Missed my chance with you once. I won't make that mistake again." Later, when I asked for a divorce, she was furious. "Over a few drinks? Are you serious?" "Damn right, I'm serious." 1. I met my wife, Claire Sullivan, in college at Northwestern. She was the campus ice queen. Guys lined up to ask her out, but she shot them all down with a look of cold indifference. I had a crush on her too, of course, but after watching guy after guy get shot down in flames, I never worked up the nerve to try. The only person exempt from her icy exterior was her childhood sweetheart, Leo Vance. The rumor was that Leo came from old money, like billionaire-level old money. And it was obvious to everyone that Claire adored him. When she looked at Leo, her eyes softened and seemed to light up from within. She was always buying him gifts, not just for holidays, but just because, trying to win his affection. Leo had been voted most handsome by all the girls on campus, a title that me and most of my friends scoffed at. He was a pretty boy, soft and delicate, with a face so perfectly sculpted it looked almost feminine. He had none of the rugged masculinity I thought a man should have. But to most of the women on campus, he and Claire were the golden couple, a match made in heaven. Despite all that, they never actually dated in college. Leo was just as aloof and arrogant as Claire, if not more so. He didn't just brush off other girls. He kept Claire at arm's length, too. He'd publicly stated more than once that they'd grown up together, and he'd always seen her as an older sister. So, whenever anyone asked Claire about it, she'd echo the same sentiment, saying he was like a little brother to her. But you could see the flicker of disappointment in her eyes every time she said it. Leo dropped out before graduation and moved to Europe. After he left, Claire fell into a long funk and became even more unapproachable, wrapped in a permanent don't even think about it aura. After we graduated, I figured I'd never cross paths with Claire again, until I was on my way to a tech conference downtown and came across a horrific multi-car pileup on the expressway. Without a second thought, I pulled over and ran to help. I never expected the person I pulled from the wreckage to be Claire. She was badly injured, barely conscious. Her parents had been killed on impact. Claire survived the surgery, but the trauma had damaged her optic nerves. She was blind. During that time, I was at the hospital almost every day. I brought her homemade chicken soup and just sat with her, talking for hours to fill the silence. I took care of everything. She couldn't accept the reality of her parents' death and her own blindness. Her grief turned into rage. She screamed at and fired every nurse and home care aide I hired until, finally, I was the only one left. I stayed with her day and night. When she was discharged, I took her to my apartment. I had shown up in her darkest, most vulnerable moment, and she began to depend on me completely. She refused to let any other strangers near her. At night, she could only fall asleep if I held her. Even after leaving the hospital, her body was a canvas of healing wounds that needed daily dressing changes to prevent infection and scarring. I was the one who did it all. As I carefully cleaned her skin and applied fresh bandages to her almost perfect frame, I felt nothing but a profound sense of compassion and protectiveness. One day, after she had mostly recovered, she was curled up against me, nuzzling into my chest like a kitten. My heart started hammering against my ribs. In that moment, I couldn't hold back anymore. I leaned down and pressed my lips to hers. That was the beginning. We were married at the courthouse a few weeks later. Under my constant care, she slowly healed. Her recovery was remarkable. For someone who had been in such a violent accident, she had surprisingly few scars. Miraculously, her eyesight began to return. Her vision was significantly weaker, but with glasses, she could live a normal life again. She gradually took over her parents' high-end interior design firm. She had a natural talent for business. After her parents' death, the company, Sullivan Designs, had been in freefall. But within 6 months of taking the helm, Claire not only restored it to its former glory, but began expanding it. I was completely, hopelessly in love with her. After we got married, I doted on her. I did all the cooking and cleaning. She never had to lift a finger at home. She, in turn, was always gentle and affectionate with me, though she maintained that cold, distant persona with everyone else. To our friends, we were the model couple, the pair everyone envied. That all changed the day Leo Vance's family went bankrupt, and he was forced to come back to the States. 3. That night, Claire came home late, reeking of tequila. I frowned. Other than our wedding toast, I had never seen her drink. She'd always pass, saying she hated the taste. "You've had a lot to drink," I said, unable to hide my annoyance. "I thought you didn't do that." She must have heard the edge of my voice because she quickly explained, "My friend was having a rough time, so I had a few drinks with him." I didn't push it. I just went to the kitchen to get her some water and Advil. Later, as I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone while Claire was in the shower, I saw Leo's Instagram story. It was a video of him and Claire at a bar, their heads close together, looking deeply into each other's eyes as they did shots. The caption read, "Missed my chance with you once. I won't make that mistake again." A cold dread washed over me. Leo was back. That post set off every alarm bell in my head. Back at Northwestern, anyone with eyes could see how Claire felt about him. When Claire came out of the shower, wearing a silky nightgown, and slid into bed next to me, I hesitated before asking, "Was it Leo you were out with tonight?" She flinched, a flicker of panic in her eyes. How? How did you know?" Seeing the grim look on my face, she quickly snuggled into my arms. "Oh, Ethan, don't be like that," she cooed. "Leo and I grew up together. He's like a little brother to me. Always has been. His family lost everything, and he's had a really rough time overseas. He's back now, with nowhere to go. I just feel bad for him and want to help him out." She ran a soft hand over the stubble on my chin, a playful smile on her lips. "What's wrong, honey? Are you jealous?" While I didn't answer, she giggled, then adopted a serious tone. "Ethan, you have nothing to worry about. I love you, and only you." With that, she climbed on top of me and started unbuttoning my shirt. In all our years of marriage, I was almost always the one to initiate things. But that night, she pulled out all the stops, and we were both completely lost in the moment. 4. Claire and I both run our own companies. We generally stay out of each other's business operations. The next day, however, our firms were collaborators on a big project, so I decided to stop by her office to discuss it in person. When I got there, I was told Claire was out with her new assistant. My stomach dropped. I knew, instantly, it had to be Leo. I called her several times, but it went straight to voicemail. I waited in her office for over 2 hours. Finally, they walked in, laughing and carrying shopping bags from high-end stores like Gucci and Burberry. Just before they entered the main office, I saw Claire tenderly brush a non-existent piece of lint from the lapel of Leo's expensive new suit, her eyes full of a watery softness I knew all too well. When Claire saw me, the guilt on her face was fleeting but unmistakable. "Ethan, you're here. Why didn't you call first?" "Check your phone," I said coldly. I did, multiple times. She pulled out her iPhone and glanced at the screen, looking embarrassed. "Oh, sorry. My phone was on silent. Leo just got back, so I was helping him pick out some new clothes." Leo looked at me, a smug glint in his eyes. He stepped forward and held out his hand. "Ethan, long time no see." I ignored his hand and looked him up and down. 5 years, and he still had that same soft, pretty boy look I'd always despised. Seeing his face again made my stomach turn. I raised an eyebrow. "Claire tells me you two grew up together, and that she's always seen you as a little brother." I paused for effect. "Isn't it a little disrespectful to call me by my first name? Shouldn't you be calling me brother-in-law?" The words hung him out to dry. His hand was stuck awkwardly in the air, not knowing whether to drop it or pull it back. The atmosphere thickened with tension. Suddenly, Leo's eyes reddened. He turned to Claire with a wounded expression. "Claire, I don't think Ethan likes me being here. I know I shouldn't have come back, and I definitely shouldn't have come to your company. It was all my mistake. I'll just go." Claire immediately panicked. She grabbed Leo's arm, then shot me a reproachful look. Ethan, I told you about his situation last night. He has no one else to rely on in this country. Please, don't make this harder for him. Seeing the tears welling up in Leo's eyes, I bit back the disgust and said nothing more. Pushing it would only drive Claire further away. After all these years together, I had to at least give her a chance to do the right thing. Sensing my displeasure, Claire quickly ushered Leo out of her office. Leo, why don't you go get familiar with the office? I need to talk business with my husband. Leo shot me a look full of malice as he reluctantly left. After Claire and I finished our work discussion, I left. Before I walked out the door, she promised me again that she only saw Leo as a brother and would never do anything to betray me. I chose to believe her. Life went on. I noticed Claire started coming home later and later, always blaming it on work. The warmth that once filled our home was slowly being replaced by a sterile coldness. A week later was our wedding anniversary. I came home early and cooked her favorite meal: filet mignon, roasted asparagus, garlic mashed potatoes. I opened a bottle of good Cabernet, lit candles all over the apartment, and waited. It was our annual tradition. No matter how busy we were, we always made time for a romantic anniversary dinner. I waited until the food was cold. She never came home. I called her phone relentlessly. No answer. Just before midnight, a text came through. Hey, something urgent came up. I'll be back late. Don't wait up. The message hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't need 3 guesses to know she was with Leo. I was going to see just how late she planned on being. In over 3 years of marriage, we had never had a serious fight. We were disgustingly in love. Now, just a short time after Leo's return, all her attention was on him. It made me question everything. Was all her affection for me over the years just an act? My heart grew colder with each passing minute. I scraped the perfectly cooked, now cold dinner into the trash can. I sat on the couch and smoked one cigarette after another. She never came home that night. By dawn, I was numb. I opened Instagram and saw a new post from Leo. It was a photo carousel. The first picture was of a pair of matching Cartier watches, easily worth over $1 million combined. The second was a picture of Claire in a kitchen I didn't recognize, smiling softly as she cooked breakfast. The caption read, "Thank you for the gift and for the amazing breakfast. You give me hope for the future." The confirmation of my fears sent a surge of pure rage through me. In our 3 years of marriage, she had never once cooked a meal for me. And now she was spending the night with another man, making him breakfast. I grabbed my jacket and stormed out. I was pulling up to the address of Leo's luxury condo building when I saw them walking out, laughing together. Leo saw my car first. He gave me a triumphant, challenging look. Then he stopped, and with painstaking care, he gently tucked a stray strand of Claire's hair behind her ear. The gesture was painfully intimate. Claire froze for a second at his touch, but she didn't pull away. A faint blush colored her cheeks, and the tender look in her eyes was unmistakable. Looking at them, anyone would have mistaken them for a married couple. Seeing red, I slammed the car door and charged at them. I kicked Leo hard in the stomach. He crumpled to the ground, wheezing like a dying animal. I hauled him up by the collar of his designer shirt and slapped him hard across the face, once then again. He let out a pathetic yelp as his cheeks instantly swelled and turned a blotchy red. It all happened so fast that Claire just stood there, stunned. When she finally snapped out of it, she rushed over and tried to pull me off him. "Ethan, what are you doing? Are you insane? Why are you hitting him?" The commotion had drawn a small crowd of onlookers. I shoved her away from me, my hand shaking as I pointed at her. "You have the nerve to ask me why. You told me you had an emergency last night, but you spent the entire night here, alone with this pretty boy. Don't tell me you two just sat around playing cards." In 3 years, I had never raised my voice at her. Seeing my fury, her face crumpled, and she looked genuinely hurt. "Ethan, is that really what you think of me? You have so little trust in me." Tears welled in her eyes as she rushed to explain. "Yes, I was with Leo last night, but it was his birthday. I was just going to stay for a little while and then come home. But he got drunk, and I was worried about leaving him alone, so I stayed to look after him." She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. But I swear, nothing happened between us. I let out a bitter, humorless laugh. "Right? Nothing happened. You're both saints." I pointed at the matching watches on their wrists. "You're my wife, but you're wearing a matching watch with another man, and you expect me to believe nothing's going on. My voice rose with every word. Last night was our wedding anniversary. I waited for you all night while you were here celebrating another man's birthday. And you're telling me nothing is going on? Tell me this, I demanded, my voice echoing in a quiet morning. In 3 years of marriage, have you ever once cooked for me? Have you ever even set foot in the kitchen? But you'll stay up all night to take care of him and then wake up to make him breakfast? And I'm supposed to believe nothing is going on? I sneered. Do you even believe that lie yourself? The crowd erupted in derisive chuckles, their looks of contempt for Claire and Leo intensifying. Claire's face was ashen. She was trembling. She reached for me, tears streaming down her face. Ethan, I know I was wrong. I completely forgot it was our anniversary. I'm so sorry. But there's really nothing between me and Leo. I only see him as a brother. I glanced at Leo and saw the light in his eyes dim. Looking at his swollen, pig-like face, some of my anger subsided. But what Claire had done had planted a thorn deep in my heart. I yanked my arm away from her grasp. Claire, stop treating me like an idiot. With that, I turned and walked away. Claire started to run after me, crying my name, but a loud groan from Leo on the ground made her stop. She hesitated, then turned back to check on him. Back in my office, I got a call from Chloe Jensen. We had grown up together, and she said she had just graduated from college and was looking for an internship. She wanted to know if she could work at my company. Thinking about how Claire had made Leo her personal assistant, I thought for a moment and then agreed. I told her she could be my new assistant. My software company had grown significantly over the years, with satellite offices in several major cities. I often had to travel with an assistant for site visits. To make Claire feel secure, I had always insisted on having a male assistant. But if she could have a man as her right hand, why couldn't I have a woman? Late that afternoon, a vibrant, energetic Chloe showed up in my office. I almost didn't recognize her. The last time I'd seen her, she was just a kid, my little shadow, always following me around and playfully declaring she was going to marry me someday. She was 3.5 years younger than me, and I'd always seen her as the little sister I never had. She had been a pretty kid, but now she was breathtaking, more beautiful than Claire and younger. She was wearing a short, apple green dress that showed off a pair of long, perfectly straight legs that I found it hard to look away from. Chloe noticed me staring, and instead of getting offended, she playfully leaned in close, covering her mouth as she giggled. Ethan, you've been staring at my legs for a while now. My face flushed. Don't be ridiculous, I said, trying to sound stern. I was just thinking about something and got distracted. She just smiled, not buying it for a second. I changed the subject. Have you found a place to stay yet? Chloe pouted. I came all this way to be with you, Ethan. I figured you'd help me with that. I thought for a moment. The company has corporate housing, but I'm not sure you'd be comfortable there. Tell you what, I have a condo near the office that's just sitting empty. You can stay there. But first, let's get some dinner. I stood up to leave, but Chloe grabbed my hand. I don't want to eat out, she whined playfully. I want you to cook for me. I was taken aback for a second, then nodded. All right, the condo has a kitchen. We'll stop for groceries, and I'll cook for you tonight. Back when I was in middle school and she was in elementary, my parents were often away on business trips. We couldn't afford a housekeeper, so I learned to cook for myself. Chloe used to come over to my house for a free meal 2 or 3 times a week. At the grocery store, she insisted on buying a few bottles of red wine. Since I was in a foul mood anyway, I agreed. After a few glasses, Chloe's cheeks were flushed. So, you're setting me up in your private condo. Does this mean you're my sugar daddy now? She teased. I rolled my eyes. This girl had no filter. She was a lightweight. After just a little bit of wine, she was drunk. She started pointing at me, calling me a jerk for breaking my promise to marry her and marrying someone else instead. She cried so hard it was heartbreaking. I was just glad we were at the apartment. If we'd been in a restaurant, someone would have definitely filmed it, and I'd be a viral meme by morning. A beautiful woman like her crying over a guy was instant internet gold. Eventually, she cried herself to sleep, slumping over the table. I carried her to the bedroom and tucked her in. Back in the living room, I finished a bottle of wine by myself before cleaning up the kitchen. The wine was stronger than I thought. When I stepped outside, the cool night air hit me, and my head started to spin. I knew I couldn't drive, so I called an Uber. When I got home, Claire was waiting for me on the living room couch. She looked exhausted. As soon as I walked in, she rushed over to help me with my coat and change into my slippers. She guided me to the couch. "You drank so much. Just sit here for a minute. I'll go make you some coffee." In 3 years of marriage, this was the first time she had ever taken care of me with such attention. If it hadn't been for what happened the night before, I would have been deeply moved. But now I felt nothing. As she helped me drink the coffee, she leaned in, sniffed, and her face darkened. "Ethan, why do you smell like a woman's perfume?" My heart skipped a beat. It must have been from when I carried Chloe to bed. I looked at her, my face a cold mask. "Why not? You can spend the night with another man, but I can't see another woman." She didn't seem to take it seriously. She knew that in all our years together, I had kept a respectful distance from other women. She trusted me. She probably thought I had sprayed some perfume on myself just to spite her. After I finished the coffee, she gently wiped my mouth with a napkin. "Ethan, I'm sorry," she whispered. "I realize I've been neglecting you." I took the watch back. "I promise. Nothing happened between us last night. I was wrong. Please, just forgive me this once. I'll keep my distance from him from now on." But it didn't matter if anything physical had happened. Her actions had already stabbed me in the back. I put my hand on her head and pulled her close, forcing her to look me in the eye. "Claire, you know I've given you everything. I've dedicated my life to you. Maybe I was too good to you, and you started taking it for granted. I loved you more than anything, but I will not tolerate betrayal. If anything like this ever happens again, we're getting a divorce. I'll set you free." I stood up. "I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. Don't bother me." She started to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. I walked into the guest room and slammed the door shut. The next morning, when I got up, Claire was in the kitchen making breakfast. I glanced over and saw it was a mango smoothie. After I showered and got dressed, she had already poured it into a glass and set it on the table. "Honey, breakfast is ready. You should eat something before you go to the office." I strapped on my watch, picked up my blazer, and walked toward the door. "No thanks. I'll grab something on the way." Her body went rigid, and I could see tears glistening in her eyes. "Ethan, are you still not going to forgive me? I told you, there's nothing going on with Leo." I turned around and gave her a long, pitying look. "Claire, we've been together for years. How do you still not know that I'm allergic to mangoes?" She froze, a look of genuine guilt finally appearing on her face. I remembered, back when we first started dating, she'd mentioned offhand that Leo's favorite breakfast was a mango smoothie. The disappointment settled in my gut like a lead weight. She started to stammer, trying to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. I walked out and slammed the door behind me. For the next few days, Claire turned into a model wife. She came home early to cook dinner and even started doing chores around the house. While I couldn't bring myself to be as doting as I once was, we maintained a civil, respectful peace. Then, one day, I was in the middle of a meeting with a major client when my mom called. She wanted to go to the Chicago Botanic Garden to pray and wanted me to go with her. My dad was out of town on a business trip, and my mom had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. When she had an episode, she couldn't remember anything. The home health aide we had was elderly herself, and I didn't feel comfortable with just her taking my mom out. I had to call Claire and ask if she had time. She agreed immediately. After my meeting, I had to take the client out for a long dinner. When I finally got home, Claire wasn't back yet. I assumed she was still with my mom and didn't think much of it. But then my phone rang. It was the police. They told me my mother had wandered off near the gardens and had almost fallen into a pond. A bystander had grabbed her just in time and called 911. It had taken him a while to identify her and find my number. They told me to get to the station immediately. My mind went completely blank. When I got to the station, my mom clung to me like a frightened child, sobbing that she was scared and couldn't find her way home. Hearing her cry like that, I started crying too. The officers gave me a stern lecture, and all I could do was apologize over and over again. My dad drove back from his trip as soon as he heard. He met me outside the station and chewed me out. With my head hung low, I told him everything that had been happening, about Claire, about Leo, about the whole mess. He let out a deep sigh, the disappointment in his voice for his daughter-in-law palpable. As he left, he just said, "Whatever you decide to do, son, I'll support you." I realized then that the depth of my love for her was now matched only by the depth of my disappointment. When I got home, Chloe was nowhere to be found. At that point, I didn't even have the energy to call her. I just sat on the couch in the dark until the sun came up. She finally walked in, looking utterly drained. When she saw me, her eyes filled with panic. She wouldn't meet my gaze. "Ethan, you're up so early. You haven't eaten, have you? I'll go make breakfast." "Don't bother," I said, my voice flat. "Claire, I want a divorce." She flinched as if struck, then rushed over and threw her arms around me. "What are you talking about?" "Ethan, what's wrong? Why are you suddenly saying this? You know you're the only one I love." When I didn't respond, she began to explain frantically. "Ethan, I didn't mean to stay out all night. Leo, he had a depressive episode. He was threatening to kill himself. I was so scared he'd actually do it that I stayed with him." She pleaded, "Please believe me, nothing happened. I only see him as a brother. You know, his family's bankruptcy hit him really hard. I was just so afraid he'd do something stupid. Ethan, I know I was wrong." I turned my head and stared at her, my expression blank. "It doesn't matter anymore. From now on, you can do whatever you want. I'm done." Realizing I was serious, a true panic set in. She hugged me tighter, her voice cracking. "Don't say that. Ethan, please don't scare me. It won't happen again, I promise. I'll find him another job. Once he's settled, I'll cut off all contact with him, okay?" She leaned in to kiss me, but I shoved her away. She stumbled and fell to the floor. Looking down at her crumpled form, the rage I'd been suppressing finally exploded. My eyes were bloodshot as I roared. "Claire, yesterday you were supposed to take my mother to the gardens. Where's my mother?" She looked completely bewildered. It was clear that in her panic over Leo, she had completely forgotten about my mother. "My wife. My wonderful wife. You were supposed to be with my mom. What happened?" My voice cracked. "She almost fell into a pond. If a stranger hadn't been there to grab her, she could have drowned. Do you have any idea how close she came to dying?" The reality of what she had done finally crashed down on her. Tears gushed from her eyes, and she crawled over, grabbing at the leg of my pants. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm so sorry. I'm a horrible person. How is she? Is she okay?" I got the call from Leo, and he was talking about suicide, and my mind just went blank. I forgot all about your mom. She knelt on the floor, sobbing and shaking my leg. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. How is she? Please, Ethan, say something." I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. When I spoke again, my voice was devoid of all emotion. "We're getting a divorce, Claire. I know you don't love me. You've only ever loved him." Without another glance at her, I pried her fingers from my pants and walked toward the door. She collapsed on the floor, her cries echoing in the empty room. "Ethan, no, I don't want a divorce. Please, just give me one more chance. I'll make it up to you. I swear I will." As I stepped out of the apartment, I didn't look back. "I'm not coming back here," I said coldly to the closed door. "Text me when you're ready to sign the papers." Then I walked away without a second thought. The first thing I did at the office was book a business trip to Miami for myself and Chloe. I didn't really need to go in person, but my head was a mess, and I needed to get away. For the first 3 days, Claire called me nonstop. I ignored every call and sent her a single text. "Stop calling me. I don't want to hear your voice. Text me when you're ready to sign the divorce papers." After that, the calls stopped. Chloe was perceptive. She could tell I was in a dark place and kept pestering me to tell her what was wrong. Finally, I caved and told her everything about Claire, Leo, and the impending divorce. After I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then, her eyes lit up. "Ethan, we're pretty much done with the work stuff here. Why don't we hit the beach? It'll be good for you to clear your head." It was exactly what I needed. We headed to South Beach that afternoon. Chloe was a whirlwind of youthful energy. She wanted to do everything: fishing, paddleboarding, swimming, snorkeling. I was content to lounge on a beach chair, sipping a pina colada and watching her splash happily in the turquoise water. I had to admit, the girl had a phenomenal body. In a bikini, she was absolutely stunning. It was enough to make a man's head spin. Her skin was flawless, too. Even after days in the sun, it remained impossibly smooth and pale. When she was tired, she'd come lie on the chair next to me, and we'd just bake in the sun together. One afternoon, I was scrolling through my phone and saw that Leo had been active on Instagram. Every post was about Claire, a trip to the movies, a shopping spree, a fancy dinner at a French restaurant. It looked like a couple in the first blush of love. Before, seeing that would have sent me into a blind rage. Now I felt almost nothing. I pulled Chloe close and snapped a selfie of us. Just as I hit the button, she quickly leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. I didn't scold her. I posted the picture to my Instagram story, but set the privacy so only Claire and Leo could see it. I was still technically married, and I didn't want to tarnish Chloe's reputation. Sure enough, not even 10 minutes later, my phone started blowing up with calls from Claire. I declined every one. Then the text started. Ethan, who is that woman? How could you be with someone else? How could you do this to me? I laughed out loud at the hypocrisy. The sheer, unadulterated hypocrisy. I texted back. You're allowed to have your childhood sweetheart, but I'm not allowed to have mine? Ethan, you think she actually likes you? She's just after your money. And what do you think Leo is after, Claire? There was a long pause before her reply came. Fine, I'll let you have your fun with other women. I understand you're angry and trying to make me jealous, but don't let it get serious. Claire, I told you, we're getting a divorce. I'm giving you a little more time, but don't force me to go through the courts. Silence. Chloe and I spent a month in Miami. Our relationship quickly deepened, and one night, after a little too much wine, one thing led to another. It was her first time. We flew back to Chicago, arriving late in the afternoon. I dropped some files off at the office, and then Chloe and I went back to my condo. I had no intention of ever setting foot in the home I had shared with Claire again. That night, a text from Claire came through. Ethan, are you back from your trip? Why aren't you home? My stomach tightened. She must have a spy in my company to know I was back so quickly. But I wasn't worried. This was the condo I lived in before I met her. She'd never been here. When I didn't reply, she started calling relentlessly. On the 99th call, I finally answered, annoyed. I'm not answering for a reason. Why are you so damn persistent? The background noise from my end was apparently enough for her to figure things out. Claire's voice, distorted with rage, screamed through the phone. Ethan Cole, you bastard. What are you doing? I hate you. We're getting a divorce. Tomorrow. She hung up. Finally, a wave of unexpected relief washed over me. The next day, I went to our house with the divorce papers I'd already had my lawyer draw up. Claire was waiting in the living room. She looked like she hadn't slept in weeks, her eyes red and puffy. Instead of yelling, her voice was a quiet plea. Ethan, can we please not do this? I'll forget about your new assistant. We can go back to how things were. I took a deep breath. Claire, after everything that's happened, do you honestly think we can go back? What she did with Leo was a thorn in my side. What I did with Chloe was now a thorn in hers. Even if we tried to salvage the marriage, it would be mutual torture. But she didn't see that yet. Ethan, she said, her voice breaking. I've done a lot of thinking. I realize now that the person I truly love is you. It's always been you. Please believe me. Nothing ever happened between me and Leo. He was in a car accident in Europe. He was injured. He can't perform in that way. That was a surprise. I was stunned for a moment. Then a bitter, ironic smile spread across my face. Claire, think about it. How would you even know something so incredibly private about him? What kind of situation would he have to be in to tell you that? Her face went pale. A man's pride is everything. He would never admit something like that unless he absolutely had to, unless they had already reached the point of no return. She knew because she had been ready and willing to cheat, only to be stopped by his inability. She shook her head frantically. No, Ethan, it's not what you think. He was drunk and talking about the accident. It just slipped out. I only see him as a brother. You have to believe me. At this point, I didn't care what was true and what was a lie. I held out the divorce papers. Sign them. I said, my voice cold. My lawyer is ready. If you don't sign, I'll file immediately. Let's not make this any uglier than it has to be. She begged and pleaded for a long time. Seeing that I wouldn't budge, she finally signed the papers. After you sign, there's a mandatory 1-month waiting period. I thought she would leave me alone, but she kept texting, trying to win me back. She sent me good morning and good night texts every day, reminding me to eat on time and not to work too hard. Just before the month was up, she called to tell me she had fired Leo and cut all ties with him. She begged me for one last chance. But when I make up my mind, I don't look back. I refused. As soon as the waiting period was over, our divorce was finalized. I heard later that after Claire fired him, Leo became unhinged. He stood on one of the Chicago River bridges and threatened to jump, blackmailing her into seeing him. She went, but as he was grandstanding, he slipped and fell into the river. The search and rescue team didn't find his body until the next day. Watching him die like that apparently broke her. She fell into a deep depression. Her company's profits plummeted, and it wasn't long before she was operating at a loss. It was only a matter of time before she went bankrupt. My company, on the other hand, was expanding faster than ever. 2 months after the divorce, Chloe told me she was pregnant. I was ecstatic. Claire and I had never used protection during our 3 years of marriage, but she never got pregnant. We were both so focused on our expanding businesses that we figured we'd get checked out by a doctor when things slowed down. But I'd always harbored a secret fear that the problem was with me. Now, I knew the issue had been with her. Chloe's pregnancy marked a new chapter in my life. We decided to get married right away to give our child a proper family. The wedding was small and intimate, with only our closest family and friends. At the ceremony, Chloe's smile was as bright as the sun. The way she looked at me was filled with so much love and tenderness. It suddenly reminded me of the look she used to give me as a child when she'd declare she was going to marry me. It was the exact same look. I realized then that she had been serious all along, and I knew, without a doubt, that I had finally found my true happiness.